If you followed B.A.L.L. Season 1, the Ballers All-Star League, you definitely know that feeling. That deep disappointment when a really talented team just bows out early.
Oh, absolutely.
Watching a whole season's worth of potential just sort of evaporate before the playoff lights even really turn on, it's tough. But for us, that early exit, it isn't the end. It's really the start of a redemption story.
Precisely. We're not here to, mourn the losses of the two eliminated teams, the Grizzlies and Royale. We're here to do a forensic analysis. Our sources give us these detailed reviews, leader stats, and maybe most importantly, the actual blueprints for their offseason.
So our mission today is pretty simple, a deep dive to figure out why. Why do teams loaded with individual star power, I mean, the kind of talent that should guarantee a playoff spot, why did they fail to turn that into wins?
And we have to start with the core paradox here because it's like the key finding across all the sources. Individual talent is just potential. It's nothing more until it's magnified by structure.
Structure is a talent multiplier, or inhibitor.
Exactly. An inhibitor.
And that inhibitor idea is just perfectly shown by these two teams. I mean, look at Royale. They went winless, 0-5.
Unbelievable.
And they had two of the league's top 5 scorers. I mean, how does a roster even mathematically fail that badly?
And then you have the Grizzlies, who are kind of the inverse problem. They built their whole team around being physical, being defensive. They even had the league leader in steals, Derek Tenora. But their whole season was just undone by efficiency issues and these devastating turnovers.
So they had the identity, they had the talent, but the execution just wasn't there when it mattered.
It fell apart under pressure.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint by blueprint. We have to start with the hard-nosed Grizzlies, that defensive team that finished 1-4.
Yeah, so the sources define the Grizzlies' core identity perfectly. They were physical, defensive, and just hard-nosed. And you're right, they were not a bad team. They were just incomplete.
Incomplete.
They built their foundation on effort, on hustle, rebounding, which is usually a great place to start. Wow.
And their anchor, Jerome Tittle, was just a statistical marvel. The numbers he put up, I mean, they're staggering. 16.5 points, almost 14 rebounds a game, 1.8 steals. But here's the step that really matters. Tittle posted a 16.6 PIE.
And for anyone who doesn't know that metric, PIE is player impact estimate. It's this comprehensive stat that measures a player's total contribution. And Tittle's 16.6 PIE, that ranked him third in the entire league. It marks him as one of the most complete, highest-impact players we saw all season. He was their alpha rebounder, their power scorer, everything.
And he had help, too, dependable help. Juwan Rex was giving them reliable secondary scoring, over 15 points a game, and their defensive guys were legitimately elite.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You had Aaron Mansell, who was just a monster on the boards, pulling down 11.5 rebounds, that's third in the league.
Right.
And then the defensive jewel was Derek Tenora. The guy led the entire B.A.L.L. in steals, averaging a ridiculous 2.7 a game. So you put Tittle, Rex, Mansell, and the league's top perimeter stopper together. On paper, that's a playoff lock.
So if the talent was that high and the defensive foundation was solid, what went wrong? Why 1-4?
All the analysis points to one thing, really. Offensive production gaps and late-game execution. So while Tittle and Rex were solid, the offensive production after them just fell off a cliff.
They needed a third guy, a reliable third guy. But couldn't their two stars just, carry the load in crunch time?
You'd think so, right. But the sources explain why they couldn't. The Grizzlies survived on talent alone. They didn't have a structured, repeatable offensive system. So in close games, what happened?
Hero ball.
Hero ball. And that led to shooting inconsistency, just too many cold stretches on offense. And this connects right back to the system issue. When the shots stopped falling, they had nothing to fall back on, which led to desperation and, you guessed it, turnovers.
And those turnovers are just momentum killers. It's not just the points the other team gets, it infects the whole team's confidence.
Exactly. They were getting the stops they needed on defense, but their offense was just too erratic to capitalize. So they had the defense down, but the offense lacked maturity. It lacked structure.
Okay, so what's the fix for Season 2? What's the 3-part blueprint for the Grizzlies' redemption?
The fixes are very surgical, very high priority. First, they absolutely have to add or develop a third scorer, that, 12 to 15 point per game guy who can take some pressure off Tittle and Rex.
Okay.
Second, they have to implement a real offensive system, define plays, not just individual talent. And third, they have to overhaul their shooting and spacing drills. The analysts say even a tiny 3 or 4% boost in efficiency would transform their entire offense.
That's fascinating. So the consensus is that the Grizzlies are, and I'm quoting here, one piece and one system adjustment away from being a playoff threat.
It feels that way. They have the hard part done, the core identity, the defensive anchors. It makes their turnaround feel probable if they execute.
Right. Now let's pivot. A complete shift to Royale. We just talked about a team that desperately needed offense. Now we're looking at a team that had maybe too much offensive talent and still went winless. This is the paradox.
This is the one that's hard to wrap your head around.
It's truly mind-bending. Royale's identity was all skill, high tempo, scoring. The expectation was what? Top 4, not 0-5. It's just astounding how completely they crashed.
When you look at their scoring sheet, it's a nightmare for opponents. Evan Bolasé was second in the entire league, averaging a scorching 25.5 points per game.
Wow.
And Joel Sandiego was right there with him, 4th overall, dropping 20.5. I mean, that duo is pure elite offensive weaponry.
And they weren't totally empty elsewhere. They had Danny Martinez giving them solid rebounding, over 7 a game. And kind of ironically, for a team with defensive problems, they had Kevin Truong, the league leader in blocks.
What's so remarkable is that they were competitive in the first half of most games. You could see the talent was better than their opponents for, 20, 25 minutes. But then, as the source material highlights with brutal honesty, everything just fell apart in the final stretch.
So what killed Royale? Was it just a lack of defensive effort, or was it something bigger, something systemic?
The analysts are completely unified on this. The sources are definitive. Fatigue killed them. The #1 fix listed in their blueprint is mandatory conditioning.
That's conditioning.
Their games consistently fell apart in the last 8 to 10 minutes. It's described as watching the tires slowly deflate on a sports car. Just pure skill running on fumes.
Wait, okay, but if they had 2 top 5 scorers who relied on iso ball, wouldn't that actually save energy? Slow the tempo down, not run complex sets. Why did that style make them collapse physically?
That's a great question. It's the type of iso they ran. It was all high-tempo one-on-one offense, which demands maximum explosive energy from your stars on every single possession. There's no system to share that load.
Yeah.
And when your defensive communication is also weak, which theirs was, your scorers are also burning energy, trying to cover for breakdowns. It was a conditioning crisis made worse by a flawed system.
Which brings us to the system flaws. So beyond the burnout, they had no defensive rotation chemistry. And offensively, it was just live and die by the jump shot because they had 0 interior scoring options.
The sources call it my turn, your turn basketball, which is the exact opposite of a structured offense. It was an identity crisis built on pure exhaustion. They were too talented to be 0-5, but too disorganized to last a full game.
So for Season 2, their blueprint is much more comprehensive than the Grizzlies. It's physical and structural.
It absolutely is. It starts with that non-negotiable conditioning program. Second, they have to implement a reliable defensive communication system. And third, critically, they need to add a post scorer or an interior finisher. This is an immediate need.
Why is that interior guy so important strategically? How does that one player fix spacing, defense, and the fatigue issue?
An interior scorer changes everything. They force the defense to collapse, which immediately opens up cleaner looks for Evan and Joel, especially late in the game when they're tired. It's a release valve.
So the guards don't have to create everything off the dribble.
Exactly. And it also changes the defensive dynamic because it allows Trung to just focus on protecting the rim instead of scrambling to cover for perimeter breakdowns.
That makes perfect sense. And the final step is just establishing clear roles for everyone. Bolasé is the scorer, Sandiego is the slasher, David Kim facilitates, Truong protects the rim. End the confusion.
If they can check off those 4 boxes, Royale could absolutely be the surprise turnaround story of Season 2. The talent is there. They just need the system and the stamina to support it.
Okay, let's synthesize this. We have 2 teams, 2 completely different starting points. The Grizzlies. Defense and rebounding focus, their need is super targeted.
Right. Offensive structure and a third scorer.
And then Royale. Scoring and guards focused. Their needs are much bigger. Physical and systemic. Conditioning, defense, and interior threat.
The shared problem, though, despite all the individual star power, from Tittle's PIE dominance to Bolasé's scoring, is that neither team had the consistency, the chemistry, or a defined system to translate that phenomenal talent into wins.
They relied purely on talent, and in B.A.L.L. Season 1, that just wasn't enough.
That's the ultimate lesson from these blueprints. Individual greatness gets you noticed. System and stamina win you the season.
So Season 2 becomes this fundamental test, right? Which is easier to fix. A specific hole in your offense or a systemic failure of stamina and structure. Both teams have the blueprint. They have the talent for a huge redemption arc.
And that leads to our final thought for you to consider.
Hmm.
The Grizzlies already have a defensive anchor in Title and the league's top stopper in Tenora. Royale has 2 top-5 scorers, so if both teams fix only their single biggest weakness, the Grizzlies get that third scorer, and Royale fixes their conditioning. Which fundamental identity is poised for the more explosive jump into playoff contention next season? Elite defense or elite scoring?
A phenomenal analysis that lays out the stakes perfectly for next season. That's all for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.